All right, sorry about the technology issues. Before I start with today's lesson, I want to just talk about a couple things. So first of all, there's going to be a quiz on Friday. It's a half day, remember? And the quiz on Friday is going to be on the stuff we talked about last week, which we only had school on Monday and Tuesday last week. So that's only going to include two things: using SOHCAHTOA to find a side, side of the right triangle, or an angle of the right triangle. So, for example, if they gave you a problem of a right triangle and they gave you an angle, like for example, if they said this was 53 and this is 7, find this, then you should be able to do that. This would just be the sine function because this is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So you'd say the sine of 53 degrees is equal to 7 over x, and then cross multiply and solve. Or they might give you a problem where they give you two sides and you're trying to find an angle. So for example, if this was 8 and 5, and you're trying to find the measure of angle A, it's the same idea. You'd set up the equation, in this case it would be tangent of angle A equals 5 over 8, and then you just take the inverse tangent, right? The angle whose tangent is. So in this case, you do the inverse trig function. In this case, you don't do the inverse trig function. So you got to know when to use what on your calculator. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. The second thing I wanted to talk about is there's going to be a test next Wednesday. Test Wednesday. And it's just on everything we've done since the last test. So this includes, we started off by talking about the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, and using the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side in a right triangle. So this is finding a missing side of the right triangle. And then also using the Pythagorean theorem to classify triangles by their angles, right? So classifying a triangle as right acute or obtuse. So remember, it's a right triangle, obviously, the Pythagorean theorem works. If a squared plus b squared equals c squared. It's an acute triangle if the Pythagorean theorem doesn't work, but the inequality a squared plus b squared is greater than c squared. That works, right? And it's an obtuse triangle if a squared plus b squared is less than c squared. Okay, and remember, the way I keep this straight in my brain is if I have A, B, and C as the sides, like this, like if this is A, B, and C, obviously if A squared plus B squared equals C squared, then it's a right triangle. But if it's obtuse, that means that C is a little bit longer. And if C is a little bit longer, that's this situation. C is a little bit longer than the sum of the squares of these two sides. So that's kind of how I keep it straight. Like if C is a little bit longer, then it's this situation and that angle has to be obtuse. If C is a little bit shorter, that angle becomes acute. Does that make sense? That logic? It just helps me keep it straight. The next thing we talked about after the Pythagorean theorem was just the trig ratios in general. Which is just SOHCAHTOA. So there's a couple different types of problems. There's the types of problems where they give you all three sides of a triangle and they just ask you to find a particular trig ratio. So you just apply SOHCAHTOA directly. There's no real work to be done, you just memorize SOHCAHTOA. So it's just finding the trig ratio. Okay, so like for example, if they gave you a triangle, right triangle, like 5, 12, 13, and they said, find the cosine of angle B. You just have to look at this triangle and say it's adjacent over hypotenuse. This would be 5/13. That's all there is to it. If there was a side that was missing that you needed, like suppose they didn't give you that 5, and they said, find this cosine of B, you'd have to first do the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side, then do SOHCAHTOA. Okay? And then we did problems where you're like what the quiz is on Friday, which is finding a missing side or angle of a right triangle. Okay. Then on Monday this week, we talked about finding the area of a triangle. How hard can it be to fix the bells? I don't know. Must be hard. Finding the area of the triangle. So remember, the deal here is the area of a triangle. I know the formula is 1/2 base times height, but that's not the formula we're focusing on here. We're using the trig formula for finding area, which is 1/2 A times B times the sine of C. And remember, this has to be really specific structure. Like these two right here have to be any two sides of the triangle. Any two sides of the triangle. And this angle over here, since it's capital letter, it's an angle. This angle has to be the angle that's between those two sides. This has to be angle between the two sides that you're using. Okay? Any questions on that from Monday? And then finally, yesterday, we talked about the law of sines. Okay? The law of sines is sine A over A equals sine B over B. And in order to use the law of sines, you have to have a really specific structure of information also. You have to have a side and the angle that's across from it, and then a side and the angle that's across from it. So there's really two types of problems that were in Delta Math. There was the problems where you're given everything you need straight up. Like, for example, they might say, this angle is 40, this angle is 75, this side is 3, find this side. So that's just totally ready for the law of sines. You would just say the sine of 75 over x equals the sine of 40 over 3. Because the information that you're working with is an angle and the side that's across from it, and then an angle and a side that's across from it. Right? So this was totally set up for law of sines. There's another type of problem that they gave. Is everyone okay from this point? You just simply cross multiply and use your calculator to solve? Everybody good with that? Okay. So the second type of problem that gave some people trouble on the Delta Math work from yesterday was maybe they don't give you the right information to begin with. Like, for example, they might tell you this angle is 130 and this angle is 30. And they might say something like, if this side is 11, find this side. So this is not totally set up for law of sines, because if you look at it, you have an angle and a side that's across from it. But if this is the side we're trying to find, we don't know the angle that's across from it. But the solution's easy. You can actually find the missing angle. If you know two of the angles, you can find the third angle. So that's the trick in the problem like this. If these angles add up to 160, this angle has to be 20 in order to add up to 180 altogether. So that's the trick. In some of the problems from yesterday's homework, you just have to find the third angle before you can apply the law of sines. Okay, and then it's totally set up. So then you can just say the sine of 20 over x equals the sine of 130 over 11. And then cross multiply and solve.
Could you cross multiply? Like, could you do that again one time, please?
Could I do this one? Yeah, sure. So to finish this up, when you cross multiply, you get x times the sine of 130. Right? That's this direction cross multiplied. And then if you cross multiply the other direction, you get equals 11 times the sine of 20 degrees. Okay, and what I'm not going to do, really resist this. Don't take the sine of 130 and work with the decimal the rest of the way. And take the sine of 20 and work with the decimal the rest of the way. Because what happens is there'll be a little bit of error involved here and a little bit of error involved here. And then you're doing a bunch of stuff to it, like multiplying by 11 and then dividing. And when you do a bunch of stuff to an answer that has error in it, it makes the error worse sometimes, right? So if you're trying to find the answer to the nearest tenth or something, your answer might be off by a tenth, okay? Instead of getting an answer that's like 5.6, you might get an answer that's like 5.5 or 5.7, just because that error that you created early in the problem just gets worse as the problem goes on. So avoid doing that. Don't use your calculator to the very end of the problem. So this ends up being x equals, right? If we're trying to get x by itself and it's x times a bunch of stuff, just divide by that stuff. So this is going to be 11 times the sine of 20 degrees divided by the sine of 130. And now we can use our calculators. Okay? So you can use Desmos, you can use whatever calculator you want. I'm going to use this calculator just so I can see what I'm typing, so I don't have to memorize it when I switch back and forth between screens. But whatever, you can use whatever calculator you want. So this is good. I want to make sure it's in degrees, first of all, and it is. So now I can just take 11 times the sine of 20 divided by the sine of 130. And that's it. So this answer is 4.9 to the nearest 10. And the units would be whatever units this side length is. Like if this side length was in miles, 11 miles, this would be 4.9 miles or whatever. Good?
Mhm.
Yep. All right, any questions on that topic? All right, then the final thing that's going to be on the test is what we're doing the next couple days, which is going to be special triangles. Which I'm actually not going to do that today because I'm running out of time. So, but that's the deal for the test on Wednesday. Okay, Pythagorean theorem, trig, area of a triangle, law of sines, and special triangles. Okay. So the homework that's listed in Delta Math as being tonight's homework, that'll actually be tomorrow night's homework. I'll fix it, but that's the deal with that. Any questions on that? Okay, so then the last thing I wanted to talk about then today is just the attendance policy, because I kind of like the way it worked the last couple of days. When I got the message that we were fully remote on Sunday, I was like having nightmares that people were just going to be like just deluging my email with like just people saying I'm here and stuff like that. And it's just, I didn't really want to have to deal with that. Or another thing is like, it's hard for me to know, like if somebody says I'm here or I watched the video, like I have no way of knowing if they actually did that. So I figured out a way to know if people actually watched the video. So the new attendance like method is going to be, you have 3 possible ways of getting credit for attendance on any given day. So here it is. To get credit for attendance, starting today, you have 3 possibilities. You either be in class, then obviously you have nothing to do. You can just be in class and I just take attendance at the beginning of class. Or you can join the live meet. So if you're remote on any day, whether it's a day that like, if you're in the white cohort and it's a Thursday or Friday, whatever, and you join the live meet, or if we're suddenly totally remote, you can actually, we're not going to have a live meet on those days. Forget that. Forget that. Or the third option, in the past, remember I always said that you could just email me at any time during the day and just say, I'm here, I'm watching the video or whatever. Forget that now, because that's useless. Because another thing that's wrong with that is, like on a typical day, I might have like 40 students total that are remote, right? Maybe 15 of them will be in the live class, and then maybe another 10 of them will email me that they're watching the video, which leaves 15 people that are not responding at all. They just aren't doing it. And it's just frustrating. I don't have the energy to like track that down and like just, you know, harass people about it. So I'm not going to do that anymore. Instead, the third option is just watch the video. And from now on, the video lesson is always going to be on Delta Math. It's going to be an assignment on Delta Math. Okay? Watch the video lesson on Delta Math. Okay, that's the third option. And I can tell like who watches it that way. What I do is normally, like in the last couple months, what I've done is I've just attached the video directly to Google Classroom. And this time, what I do is I upload the video to YouTube, and then I can assign YouTube video to be watched on Delta Math, and then I can just tell. So that's much easier for me. It's no more difficult for you, and so it's a win-win, in my opinion. Okay? The only thing it's difficult for you is if you haven't been watching the video and you've been saying you've been watching the video, now I'll be able to tell and you'll be marked absent. And if you turn around and fail the class, I can say, well, this student only watched 2 out of 30 videos, so it's really not shocking, right? So anyway, so that's the deal now. To get credit for attendance, you have to do one of these 3 things. On a day when we're fully remote, this is going to be the only option. Okay, this is going to be the only option. Only option. If we are fully remote. Okay, and in terms of people that might have questions with their homework or whatever, I posted on Google Classroom, like I have office hours twice a day, every single day. So don't be afraid to come to those office hours or schedule a different time with me if you're not free during my office hours or whatever. I'm free like lots of different times that I can rearrange my schedule to be free whenever you're free, okay, on a day when we're fully remote. So don't think that just because we're not having a live class, you don't have an opportunity to ask questions, because you definitely do. And the video is not that long usually, right? So the video is usually somewhere between 10 and 18 minutes or something like that. So it's not like you're sitting there watching a video and it's 42 minutes or whatever, never that long. So, you know, just watch the video and you'll get credit for the class on those days. Okay? Any questions on that? So it's definitely a change from before. It makes it a little less work for most people who have been emailing me and telling me that they're watching the video. And if you've just been joining the live meet and just a normal, and we're just in the normal hybrid model, you can just keep doing what you're doing. Nothing's changed. Any questions? All right, that's it for today then. I'll post this video, and then starting today, we'll just do that. We'll just watch the video. Okay, have a good day.